Having noted these objections, let's put them aside and explore BonJour's response in its complete form. BonJour suggests that we have this schema for making inferences that justify our perceptual beliefs. And here's our inferential schema. Premise 1 says, I have a spontaneous, and here we insert the modality that we're talking about, belief that, and here we insert the propositional content of that belief. Spontaneous, again, insert that modality, beliefs about, and here we insert the target belief type, are in, here we specify appropriate conditions very likely to be true, and our premise 3, conditions are as specified in that second premise, and we're able to therefore conclude probably propositional content of that belief. Now I realize that all seems very abstract, so let's go through a concrete example of it. I have a spontaneous visual belief that there is a red flower in a vase. Spontaneous visual beliefs about the coloring category of medium-sized objects are, in normal lighting and at close distance conditions, very likely to be true. Conditions are as specified in 2. Therefore, probably, there's a red flower in the vase. So this is how BonJour thinks we tacitly have available to us an inference that justifies our perceptual beliefs, and in virtue of our having those justified perceptual beliefs, he thinks that we are connected to the world in a way that the objection to coherence theory has suggested we aren't. Now, the foundationalist will probably look at this and go, well, this looks like it's the beginning of a very nice infinite regress. How are you going to stop the infinite regress here? And so BonJour has a response to that. All right? So if we look at, for instance, premise 1 there, I have a spontaneous visual belief that there is a red flower in the vase. How am I going to actually justify that belief? It's going to have to be on the basis of some other belief that I have. And how am I going to justify that belief? Well, presumably on the basis of some other belief that I have, and so on. And if I can do that, it seems as though I actually don't get any justification out of these inferential schemas. So BonJour responds to that. And he says, look, I anticipate objections that first premise seems unjustifiable. And I offer an account whereby the beliefs for premise 1 are generated by introspection and justified inferentially in somewhat the same manner as sensory beliefs by the following argument schema. So this argument schema is a little bit different. It just has this one premise. Introspective beliefs of certain sorts, insert our modality here, insert our propositional content here, are very likely to be true. Hence, my introspective belief that, insert our propositional content of our introspective belief, is probably true. And again, we'll make that concrete by considering that case that we were talking about before. So in our base case, this is going to look like this. Introspective beliefs about spontaneous visual beliefs that there are red flowers in a vase are very likely to be true. Hence my introspective belief that I have a spontaneous visual belief that there is a red flower in a vase is probably true. Now, BonJour claims then that he doesn't need the premise 1 and premise 3 in this second introspection argument. All he needs is that introspective premise. And so he says, premise 1, a belief that one has an introspective belief with the specified content, is not needed for the argument since, and this is a quote from the paper, it is a fact that about human perceivers that their beliefs about introspective matters accord with and reflect their spontaneous introspective beliefs. Premise 3 proves unnecessary since introspection is almost impervious to conditions. And so he thinks we just have that one belief about introspection, and that belief provides us with the justification for that first premise in the original perceptual belief inference schema. Now, this seems problematic to me. It strikes me as far from clear that 1 and 3 are in fact dispensable as BonJour claims. As introspection is not entirely impervious to conditions, then don't we still need three to specify those conditions and to rule out their applicability in that case? Moreover, BonJour claims that the purpose of one is to assert that the belief is spontaneous, and that actually strikes me as false. Surely part of the purpose of one is to identify the source of belief, and this surely seems to be necessary. If I would delete the term spontaneous from this premise one, for instance, in the vase case, I have a visual belief that there's a red flower in the vase, is important to this inference schema. The fact that spontaneous is not part of that doesn't seem to matter really at all. So it doesn't seem like BonJour actually gets out of the regress in the way that he claims that he does. As a result, it's not clear that BonJour's response is any more effective at eliminating an epistemic regress than the foundationalist response is. And there are many other troubling aspects of this response to this objection that hinge on his objections to the notion of basic beliefs. In effect, it's not clear at all that BonJour can actually introduce novel, justified content into his coherence belief systems. But let's put that in brackets. Let's not think about it, even though it will clearly have influence in the effectiveness of his responses to these other objections. And let's just take those objections and his responses in isolation and judge them on their merits. Now recall that that second objection that he considers is the first one that we talked about, this idea that coherence is cheap. And it's spelled out by saying that for any time and any set of empirical data, there are many equally coherent but incompatible belief systems that can be formulated in response to that data. Therefore, coherence alone can't determine a justified choice between alternative belief systems, and hence it doesn't seem like we could be justified in a choice between one of those belief systems or another at any point in time. Now, BonJour denies that this is true, at least in the long run. Though he essentially asserts this without a lot of argument, what he does claim is that no two systems can remain equally coherent throughout the accumulation of observation beliefs over time. And even if this were true, which it's not clear that it is, it wouldn't actually respond to this objection, because this objection doesn't claim that there are a finite set of possible explanations and that these explanations will slowly be whittled down as experience gives us new data until there is only one left. Instead, what the objection suggests is that for any set of data, in other words, as we go through time, there will be multiple theories that we can posit that can explain that data. Now, some theories, some coherent belief systems may fall to the data, but that doesn't mean that others won't be introduced that can explain the current data set, and hence that there won't always be multiple possible belief systems or theories from which to choose, for which coherence provides us with no basis for reasoned decision. We can express that as follows. There's a long and skeptical tradition in the philosophy of science holding that mere consistency with the evidence is an insufficient criterion for theory choice. And essentially, the idea is that for any set of evidence, there's an infinite number of theories that can explain that set of evidence. Of course, we don't need to posit an infinite number of theories. We just need multiple theories that are equally explanatory and coherent. An off-cited example is Ptolemaic astronomy. Ptolemaic astronomy was highly predictive and coherent system. And then when Copernican astronomy came along, there were two coherent and predictive systems. And any new evidence that came to light for the next 50 years or so could be accommodated by a number of different mechanisms within Ptolemaic astronomy that allowed the Ptolemaic astronomer to adapt the theory in response to anomalous observations. And so it doesn't seem at all obvious that Ptolemaic astronomy is going to be overthrown by observations as time goes by, since it has mechanisms for adjusting to those new observations. In short, such skeptics claim that though some systems may fall to observation in the process of testing theories or coherent belief systems through observations, observation itself cannot result in an outcome in which one and only one possible candidate theory or coherent set of beliefs proves consistent with the data in the long run.